Uh, well, I said I'd do it, so here I am. The Knuckles comics are bizarre. It's less of a story about the sole guardian of a mystical floating island, and more of a story about how one man took over an entire series and made it into his own ridiculous thing. Penders had full control of the series, so he took what should have been a simple comic for kids and transformed it into a convoluted mess filled with his own original creations, politics, and furry drama. You could already see some of that in the Sonic comics, as I talked about in my other video, which, by the way, you should watch that first if you haven't already. But this is Penders going into full overdrive, making it into his own original work, and something he would try to continue on long after he stopped working for Sega, and it's just, yeah. So join me, friends, as we dive deep into a story about bad parents, furry racism, and really awkward attempts at referencing certain real-world events. Listen, we'll get to that. Just roll the intro. Roll the intro! Before the main comic, we had a 3-part miniseries, which was a continuation of Knuckles' whole side story in the Sonic comics. The Chaotix were captured by a mysterious man calling himself Archimedes, who had been torturing Knuckles with taunts and riddles this entire time. There's supposed to be an air of mystery about who Archimedes is and why he's doing all this, but instead the whole arc was an excuse to do a massive lore dump about the Echidnas, which this miniseries will remind you of many times. We finally get to meet Archimedes after issues of build-up, and it turns out he's an Australian fire ant who did all this to test Knuckles' worth as a guardian and teach him about, responsibility and the value of teamwork, or something like that. We also get introduced to one of the major antagonists for the series, Dimitri, or Enerjack as he calls himself now. Enerjack is supposed to be an intimidating presence, considering he's an all-powerful being with the power of the Chaos Emeralds, but he doesn't really do much here. He warps Knuckles and Archimedes into the desert, brainwashes the Chaotix, gets into a fistfight with Knuckles, and then gets sent off into space. How did he even get launched into space, you might ask? Oh, that was done by a mysterious echidna who turns out to be Knuckles' dad, Locke, who had been watching over Knuckles in secret this entire time. The same dad who made his son think he was dead since he made his own child watch him seemingly commit suicide as he walks into a wall of fire. And believe me, that isn't even close to the worst thing he's ever done. If it seems like I'm glossing over a lot of details, it's because there's not really much to actually get into. Half of this miniseries is spent recapping lore we already know, and the other half is spent introducing things that will become important later. Aside from that, nothing really happens, and Enerjack goes out like a complete chump. And that's not even getting into how there was zero build-up into Enerjack showing up. Why did it take him so long to escape from all that rubble? How did he know to show up exactly where Knuckles and his friends are? Don't worry about it! This all leads up to the next arc, the Dark Legion, the arc that kickstarted the whole series in the first place. This was originally supposed to be a second 3-part miniseries, but it did so well they changed it into becoming the first 3 issues of the comic instead, and continued things from there. This arc is the first appearance of a new villain faction, the Dark Legion, and their leader, Kragok, as well as, you guessed it, more lore! So, in my Sonic video, I went over how the Echidnas renounced all technology and blew up their entire city because one guy went evil. And would you believe there are people who are against having their things taken away from them, or having their homes blown up? Which is completely reasonable, but the comic decides instead to show them as extremists who want to shoot everybody and maybe take over the world. And the real kicker here? Edmund, the first Guardian who decided to do all this so nobody would have too much power. His descendants have built a giant high-tech command base to monitor the whole island with. Does the comic ever bring up the hypocrisy of all this? Haha, no. After the Dark Legion are dealt with, the issue after that introduces us to another new character, and someone who would become a fan favorite, Julie Sue, a former member of the Legion who left because she felt herself drawn to Knuckles, for reasons we'll get into later. Also, Locke, shipping your son with a lady he just met and got into a fist fight with, that's a little creepy, my dude. And that's not the only thing that happens. Remember Echidnopolis, the city that was supposed to have been blown up? It's back somehow, reappearing out of nowhere. You'll also notice that the city, which has supposedly renounced all technology, has flying cars and giant skyscrapers. To the comic's credit, this does get addressed later. It's not a good explanation, but it's something, I guess. And just in case this issue wasn't jam-packed enough, we got Knuckles' mom, Lara Lee, showing up, who recognizes her son almost instantly, despite not seeing him for years. And Knuckles is shocked to find his mom is still alive, because for some reason, his dad told him his mom was dead. What the fuck, Luck? Also, I hope you enjoy seeing everyone looking like Knuckles with small variations to them, because we're gonna get a lot of that. So how is this all happening? Why does the city keep appearing and disappearing? Well, thankfully, we get an explanation from Knuckles' racist great-grandpa, Hawkins. Turns out, there's another faction the Echidnas were at war with, the Dingoes, who Hawkins call warlike and savages. The Dingoes tried launching an honest-to-God nuclear warhead, which the Echidnas just left laying around. And in order to stop their home from becoming a nuclear wasteland, Hawkins uses a device to send Echidnopolis, as well as the Dingoes, to another zone entirely, and the events of Endgame cause the zone to destabilize itself, and now the Dingo Zone and the Echidna Zone are crashing into each other. And only one of them can survive. It all makes perfect sense to me! The Dingoes are also supposed to be the bad guys of this arc, and we see them try and take over Echidnopolis, and do shit like lining up a bunch of Echidnas near a wall to shoot them. It's okay, he wasn't actually going to shoot them, he was just kidding. But then you remember, they're trying to stop their homes from being destroyed! In case it wasn't obvious by now, villains with all too sympathetic problems are going to be a reoccurring issue in the series. One thing I feel that's hard to get across is how much happens in one single issue. Instead of focusing on one or two things, Penders decides it's better to have 5 or 6 plots happen all at once. In the next issue alone, we have the return of Enerjack, him capturing Archimedes and another fire ant whose name I forgot, the Dingo's leader, Stryker, going through a hearing to get housing for his people, and then have him secretly double-cross the Echidnas because we can't have the Dingoes be too sympathetic. A lot of angst coming from Lara Lee, Hawkins in a coma, being mind-melded by Locke, and telling him he wants to die. No, it doesn't make any sense in context either. And Enerjack showing up to cause problems for Knuckles. I reiterate, this all happens in one issue. We then get an entire issue where Enerjack fucks around with Knuckles in various ways before splitting him into tiny atoms, which begs the question, why didn't you do that in the first place? If you had all this power, then why did you go down so easily the first time? Oh, and Julie Sue rejoins the Legion. And she might have left the Chaotix to die. Why did she rejoin? Don't worry about it. Anyways, despite being split into pieces, he survives because of, and I'm not joking here, God. God saves Knuckles from death. I wish I was making this up. So how does Knuckles deal with an all-powerful villain like Enerjack? He doesn't. Instead, another villain called Mammoth Mongol shows up, saps Enerjack of all his powers, and becomes the main problem now. Wait, who the heck is Mammoth Mongol, you might ask? He's the guy who appeared in the Mega Madness special. I just decided to pop up here. Don't worry about it. Oh, and Julie Sue betrays the Legion again. What was she hoping to accomplish when she rejoined them in the first place? Don't worry about it! You know what this comic needs more of? That's right! More lore! And another faction with their own differing plotline! This time we meet the Lost Tribe. A group of echidnas led by Altair, Knuckles' other great-grandfather, who left Echidnopolis because they were opposed to it being lifted to the sky for, religious reasons, and have now been wandering for centuries looking for a new home. Also, Lara Lee goes to church to pray for her son. This has nothing to do with anything. I just find it funny that Penders went, you know what this world needs? That's right, Christian imagery! Which we're gonna get a lot of, trust me. Altair shows up to Knuckles' home and whisks him away because he's the chosen one, and because some vague prophecy calls for it, and warns him about the upcoming Day of Fury, an apocalyptic event that will bring ruin to everything. Which, by the way, the Day of Fury, it'll barely ever be relevant from here on out. But at least we get one of the funniest panels in the comic out of this. Yeah, man, you're so right about that. Everything does die. But forget about all that. Instead of dealing with any of that, this whole arc is a Robin Hood pastiche, where the characters go to Snottingham, I am not making that name up, and meet Robbo the Hedge and Mary Ann, and work with them to rescue the captured echidnas from the Sheriff of Snottingham. Someone also almost gets publicly hanged in this comic for kids, but don't worry about it. This all ends with the echidna successfully being rescued, and Knuckles, who has one of his many Jesus moments, leading them to the lost city of Albion. And oh boy, are they going to be something we're going to get into more later. Boy, we've sure gone through a lot lately, haven't we? Surely the next part will deal with the Day of Fury, right? Ha ha! Nope. Instead, we're opening up with Charmy's friend dying from a drug overdose. That's right, y'all. We're dealing with the dangers of drugs now. We have an entire story arc about gangsters secretly drugging kids to get them addicted to LSD. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say LSD? I actually meant to say lemon sundrop dandelion poisoning. And Charmy's friend, who we literally never met until now, fucking dies. Just to reiterate, in case it wasn't clear enough, children are being drugged and almost dying from it. Holy shit, Penders. And it doesn't stop there. We have Charmy and the Chaotix tripping out on LSD-laced chili dogs. A POV shot of Charmy getting opened up during surgery, with his blood splattering all over, and gangsters pulling out real-ass guns and shooting, and a tragic funeral for a character we never met. Oh, and we also get the reveal that Charmy, who was barely a character until now, is secretly a prince who ran away from home, and all the tragedy convinced him to return back, take his crown, and go through his arranged marriage, and also be written out of the comic for several years. What do I even say about this? I remember reading this when I was a kid, but I never realized how insane it all was until now. I wish I knew what was going through Pender's mind while he was working on this, because this entire story arc comes off as insane and unhinged. After that whole arc, things slow down from here. We get introduced to the Grandfather Squad, who are all past Guardians and are all terrible in their own different ways. Let's just ignore the fact that they've been monitoring all of Mobius and chose to do absolutely nothing when Robotnik was terrorizing it. And that's not all. How about we get more lore and more characters? We meet Tobor, another grandparent of Knuckles, who has, by far, the most ridiculous backstory out of anybody yet. While he was a Guardian, he got into a scrap with the Legion of Doom and their previous leader, Mortori Rex, and the fight ended with a bunch of pillars collapsing all over them, and Tobor's dad somehow mistaking Rex for his own son and carrying him away, leaving Tobor in the rubble. And Tobor, instead of going back and warning his family about the traitor in their midst, decides to leave in shame and wander around, lost for years. Great going, buddy. And if you're wondering, wait, how did Rex manage to keep his facade as Tobor up for so long? You see, it's because they both got their eyes fucked up, and now nobody can tell them apart. Listen, Penders was the one who wrote all this. Go blame him. Okay, well, now that he's back, is Tobor going to rejoin the Grandpa Squad and tell them that their Tobor's a spy? Nah, instead he and Knuckles get into a fight with Krygok, remember him? And it ends with Tobor pulling Krygok into another zone, and we won't see either of them for several years. I haven't gone too much into Locke yet, and trust me, we'll get to him soon enough. Other than being a negligent father who's spying and keeping secrets from his own son, he's also a terrible husband. What's the first thing he does when he sees Lara Lee do something he doesn't approve of? He confronts her, gets into an argument with her, and then forces a kiss on her. I should also mention that Penders based Lara Lee and Locke on his own divorced parents, so take that however you will. So after everything that's happened, how do we follow all that up? Surely it can't get any crazier than mobsters drugging kids, right? Well, how about taking a very real poem about the Holocaust and repurposing it to be about Sonic characters? What the fuck, Penders? And this isn't even the last time he'll do it. He does it 3 times, including taking a quote that's about a piece of anti-Semitic propaganda and having it be said by the leader of his evil Echidna faction. I repeat, what the fuck, Penders? Yeah, we're going there. For some reason, Penders decided that there should be more political weight to a furry soap opera comic, so now we're comparing our main villain group to fascists. Hooray! And that's not all! Remember the dingoes? Remember how they were shown to be evil and militaristic and everything? Now they're being portrayed as unruly protesters for wanting things like, equal rights and actual housing. God, there's so much going on here. The actual plot isn't any less insane. Enerjack is back, and he's all borged up, and this time, he and his Dark Legion are planning on rigging the upcoming election to install their own fascist regime into it, despite them never showing any kind of ideology like that before all this. And it's just, I just, what do I even say about this? I feel like Penders is trying to make some kind of political message here, but it's so absurd, I can't even take it seriously. And how do they manage to solve all this? By beating up the bad guys and saving the city from fascism. Hooray! And yes, this will make future arcs very uncomfortable. Oh, and we haven't talked about Locke much, have we? Despite being one of the most important characters in the comic, he hasn't really done much until now, and he's been keeping himself in the shadows until Knuckles, after learning that his father is alive, confronts him. Instead of being angry at his dad for abandoning him for all these years, he embraces him. And I know the scene is supposed to be sweet and heartwarming, but it comes off as really wrong, especially when we learn about the other thing that Locke did to Knuckles. So why did Locke do everything he did, including abandoning his own son and wife? It's because he had a bad dream. That was it. He had a nightmare that he thought was a premonition of things to come, and that caused him to freak out, and that was it. He was so freaked out, he decided it was time to experiment on his own son. That's right, he took Knuckles while he was still an egg, behind his wife's back, and blasts him with chaos energy. He microwaves his own son to turn him into a mutant super weapon, and that's why Knuckles has his, Knuckles. Because he's been mutated by his own father. Father of the year, folks. But it's all okay. Knuckles forgets his father. He's just happy to have him back. It's all good, folks. And father and son have been reunited as one happy family. I'm so tired. Do you know what we need after all those revelations and awkward attempts at social commentary? That's right, it's time for the rom-com arc. Knuckles realizes that he has feelings for Julie Sue and spends 3 whole issues dealing with all that. We also learn that the reason Julie Sue and Knuckles are drawn together is because they were soul-bounded and were destined to be together. Because we can't just have them both develop a romance naturally, I guess. If anything, this whole arc gives us one of the best panels of the entire series. Just look at it. Words cannot describe how beautiful it is. It's art. Pure art. We get one last arc before the comic gets unceremoniously cancelled, and it's kind of nothing. It's just Penders doing his own version of the most dangerous game, giving us another character, who gets killed off near the end, and never mentioned ever again. It's a real wet fart of an ending, and this could have been it. This could have been the last story that Penders ever wrote for Knuckles. Except it wasn't. Knuckles' comic might be over, but that didn't stop Penders from continuing his story in other ways. We get a special, which starts with Lara Lee getting remarried, and things quickly spiraling from there. The Dingoes, who had been forced to live as squatters and had been treated like dirt this entire time, are now shown as armed extremists who are planning on taking over the entire city. And while that's all happening, Hawkins, who's still in a coma, passes away. Not like he was ever relevant to the story. And to make matters worse, the issue ends with Dimitri firing a quantum beam at the floating island, sending everyone to another zone, and leaving Knuckles adrift at sea, ending things on a cliffhanger. Penders' Knuckles stories will now be part of the main Sonic comics, as shorter side stories, and boy, if you thought things were convoluted now, just you wait, because things are about to get much worse from here. The stories might be shorter, but that doesn't stop Penders from filling those 5 pages he gets every issue with as much bullshit as he possibly can. Knuckles wakes up and runs into Robbo the Hedge, along with Antoine and Bunny, two major characters from the main series, and they all head off to the city of Albion to find answers for their problems. While there, Knuckles finds out that the Albions had the sheriff of Snottingham, I still can't get over that fucking name, who was actually Antoine's roboticized dad, and were planning to deactivate him, essentially killing him for good. Before Knuckles could say anything, the sheriff wakes up, breaks free, there's a huge explosion, and Knuckles is green now. If you're wondering if you're missing anything, or if I'm skipping things, I'm not. That's what happens. There's no real explanation for why he's green now, he just is. Knuckles is green, and powered up, and he can stop everybody from fighting because he's all-powerful now. And the Albions don't like that one bit, so they send out some mercenaries to capture Knuckles, and holy shit, what happened to the art? The backgrounds are just lazy photoshops now. It's like they just kinda gave up, kinda like this entire comic. It's incredible how bad it suddenly got. Like, oh my god, did they just run out of time? Anyways, Knuckles gets caught, but then he escapes, because he literally has the power of a god now, and he has an absurd amount of powers, including such things as time travel, and he confronts Dimitri, but then he ends up cooperating with him in exchange for getting everyone on the island back, despite Knuckles having the power to do that himself, and he does just that later on. My god, this comic is so fucking dumb, y'all. It's so goddamn dumb. Oh, remember Tobor? He pops up again, along with Kragok. Then they both crash and die. This is not a joke. This actually happens, and it might be the single funniest thing to happen in this entire run. And things get so much stupider from here. Knuckles, with all the power he has, attempts to fix the timeline by going back in time to stop certain events from happening, only for things to get worse somehow. And then he decides to say, fuck it, and reverses the effect of the quantum beam, returning everything back to where they originally were. Which, why didn't you do that in the first place? And we get a new character appearing too! It's Laura Sue, Knuckles and Julie Sue's daughter from the future, who time traveled to the past to stop her dad from dying. A character who got surprisingly popular, and will get her own original comic made by Penders years later, and oh boy, we are not getting into that now. Now you'd think that would be the end of Enerjack and Knuckles' partnership, but nah, they're cool now, and they're working together to unify the echidnas again for the greater good, which wouldn't be too bad if it wasn't for, you know, literally everything that's happened before all this. Oh, and you know who else shows up out of nowhere? It's Mammoth Mogul, who captures Dimitri, somehow, and calls for Knuckles to meet him, and just, why does any of this matter? Knuckles has proven that he's all-powerful, and he's got limitless powers, and he can warp reality itself. How can anything prove to be a threat to him? But no, we gotta have our dramatic confrontation, so he meets with Mammoth Mogul, and Knuckles dies. He actually just fucking dies. There's no big dramatic fight, no big moment. Knuckles dies, saving Enerjack's life. It is, without a doubt, one of the dumbest ways I've ever seen a comic kill off a main character. We get his funeral and everything, and we get to see him sent off to Echidna Heaven by two chows, and just, I cannot take this panel seriously at all. Just, why? And that's it. That's the end of Knuckles. After everything he's been through, he just dies and passes on to the next life. Except he doesn't, because he literally comes back in the next issue as regular Knuckles with all his powers gone. So now I have to ask, what was the point of all that? So why did I spend so much time talking about the Sonic comics and its entire mess of a series? It's because, well, I still kind of like it. For everything I've just said, I'm still glad these comics exist because they're so strange and weird, and there's nothing quite like them. And there's something so fascinating about someone taking an IP like Sonic and trying to craft their own world and lore around it. And people who are still inspired by these works, it helped them become writers or artists themselves because there was something there to them. As I grow older, I've stopped blindly hating on media, and I've come to appreciate bad media as much as the good, because in the end of the day, Even when it's a flaming train wreck, they try to make something. They put a little piece of themselves out into the world for other people to judge. Like I am, right now. Is what I'm doing good? I can't tell, and I can't really say, but that hasn't stopped me from making this video. For all the smack I gave Penders and his works, they were still a formative part of my childhood and helped form my tastes later in life, which is why I can't actually bring myself to hate these comics. Art can still be good, even when it's bad. That's what makes it art.